Mayor live from New Hampshire. And here we are on a night where I believe that the press has once again been exposed as completely and thoroughly corrupt. In this case, the administration was willing to name names. And we'll get into that very shortly, because it's really rather coincidental that the same reporter is involved in several totally false stories that could easily be seen as false stories when you were publishing them, false stories of a spectacular nature. And then she's allowed to do it over and over and over again. They're remarkable, absolutely remarkable. But first, I'm going to do what I promised on the Rudy Giuliani show, which is I'm going to show you, if you want to put this up on the screen, Ted, it's in fairly small print, but I think you'll be able to make it out. This is military spending as a percentage of GDP in 2024. Now, this is all going to go up. The actual spending number imposed on them by rule is 2%. So that's the first line that you see. And about a little more than half, no, considerably more than half the countries reached that level. That wasn't true when Trump first came into office. When Trump first came into office, it was only about 8 countries that reached that level. Since then, however, the new target is 3.5%. And you can see that but that actually is a target for this year. So nobody has reached that except one, Poland. But Poland is the only one that's reached it. You see Poland at the very top. No, it won't. It won't. No, it doesn't.
I mean, you something like this.
But yeah, we could probably do it that way.
And scroll it down to show people the list here.
So it would be Poland right there. And you'll see that the United States is third, and we're a little short of the 3.5. But as I said, that was just imposed. The eventual target is going to be 5%. And the only one anywhere near there is Poland, which is at about 4.4%. Now, this is not an impossible target for us. Our spending as a percentage of GDP under Ronald Reagan was 5.5%. And right now, it's a little under 3.5. It's at about 3.3. But I mean, there's no question we will get there. And let's face it, that makes for a much more secure. It makes for a much more secure Western world that way. So we have Donald Trump to thank for that. Thank you, President Trump. And I might as well say it because nobody in the press is, except for a couple of the conservative networks. Well, I mean, I think the whole country is in a state of shock over the Democrat nominee for mayor of New York, who is a socialist, communist, really, and a strong, very outspoken defender of Islamic terrorist movements like Hamas, and a very, very virulent critic of Israel, of the Jewish people, of the Zionist movement, and a very big defender of Hamas. He has made extremely hateful statements about the Jewish people. He has made some pretty hateful statements about the United States. And then he has a program which makes it almost impossible to understand how or why the intelligent people of New York would vote for him. The guy wants to supply, he wants to set up government grocery stores. Government grocery stores. And then he wants to provide just about everything. I can't even keep track of all the free things he wants to give away, he tells us how he's going to pay for them. He's going to raise taxes on the rich. But by the time he gets into office, should he win, there won't be any rich left. You see, all of these communists don't realize that they haven't been able to do, thank God, in America, what they do in China or what they did in the Soviet Union or what they do in Venezuela, which is they can, keep you in your province, keep you in your house, keep you in your... So far, we can move. The amount of people that have moved out of the high tax, high expense Democrat states is astounding. I mean, it's a competition in terms of percentage. The numbers, of course, would be the most gross numbers of California, but it's a kind of a debate between the three. Now, if that clown that you see there, and he isn't a clown, he's a very, very dangerous man. That dangerous, totally inexperienced person is a very, very big supporter of a terrorist group that kills Americans and Jews. He basically has justified all that they do. And he's also completely unqualified. Ask me what he's done, Ted.
What has he done, Mayor?
Nothing. He's done nothing except to put out, we don't need an investigation to know that the NYPD is racist. I can't see that one. Anti what? Anti-queer. And a major threat to public safety. What we need is to defund the NYPD. He must get a lot of money from criminals. He'd be really good for them.
This is him again. All this misery, all for money. In the last budget, the city council tried to make the NYPD reduce its overtime budget by half. They simply refused. There is no negotiating with an institution this wicked and corrupt. We're referring to the NYPD. Defund it, dismantle it, end the cycle of violence.
I mean, well, this is completely, this is,
Here he is on
he kind of reminds me a little bit of a young version of Governor Feliz Navidad.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks a little like a jackass.
Here he is on the groceries.
Out of control. The cost of eggs and milk, grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zahran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you. Grocery prices are out of control.
Well, I guess, the campaign has sort of started, and I would say if you want to accelerate the end of New York City with having any element of a great city, vote for that. Vote for that anti-American, and I'm not going to call him a clown because he's too dangerous. Clowns aren't dangerous. He's extraordinarily dangerous. He's the culmination of just what Karl Marx wanted after all these years of preparation for it with the communist infiltration of America.
Mayor Giuliani, may I comment?
Of course, Doctor.
So I happen to know business, and I look at margins for various businesses to see what I want to get involved in. In grocery stores, just like restaurants usually have a very low margin, like it's about a 1 to 2%
Yes, yes.
margin. So there's no price gouging. And if this man was true to himself, egg prices have dropped dramatically since the Biden administration.
Yeah, I mean, this was a Biden lie about price gouging. We used to point this out on our show, Doctor, that and you would be the one to do it. That there's, if you start to do price controls for grocery stores, they'll go out of existence. 1.5%, 2% profit margin. What are you going to bring it down to? 0.5%? And it's a tough business. Which means we probably don't have enough grocery stores. You tend to have more of something that's very profitable. We probably don't have enough, which actually brings prices up. The minute they're not enough, of course, it's supply and demand, right? Like they don't understand that. They believe it. I'm telling you, my mother had an expression for communists. She would say they believe that money grows on trees. Well, they don't believe that. They know it doesn't. They want to bankrupt you. And then they keep all the money for themselves. You know that guy Mondami is rich. Did you know that? He grew up a rich kid. And he never done anything. He's 33 years old. Never been in the military, never run a business, never accomplished anything that he can mention, except going around looking like and acting like a jackass. Yeah, there you go. See that? Anyone who does that is a lighthead.
बनूंगा बात ये है कि मैं क्या करूंगा हमारे कम्युनिटीज के लिए और हर एक न्यूयॉर्कर के लिए मैं हमारे शहर को अफोर्डेबल बनाऊंगा न्यूयॉर्कर्स मुश्किल से अफोर्ड कर रहे हैं रोटी कपड़ा
Did he do the commercial in what, in Arabic?
This is a commercial in a foreign language, yes.
But nobody speaks that language in New York. I mean, it's not exactly a prolific language.
Right.
What language is it? Do we know?
It appears to be. Yeah, let's listen to it again.
अफोर्ड कर रहे हैं रोटी कपड़ा और मकान मैं ये सब बदलने के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ रेंट फ्री बसेस यूनिवर्सल चाइल्ड केयर और सस्ती ग्रोसरीज के जरिए पर आपको एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ तुमने कभी किसी को वोट किया बात ये नहीं है कि मैं क्या बनूंगा बात ये है कि मैं क्या करूंगा हमारे कम्युनिटीज के लिए और हर एक न्यूयॉर्कर के लिए मैं हमारे शहर को अफोर्डेबल बनाऊंगा न्यूयॉर्कर्स मुश्किल से अफोर्ड कर रहे हैं रोटी कपड़ा और मकान मैं ये सब बदलने के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ फ्री बसेस यूनिवर्सल चाइल्ड केयर और सस्ती ग्रोसरीज के जरिए आपको एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ तुमने कभी किसी को वोट किया
The New York City Council, let's put it, we've watched it enough now. It's driving me crazy. The city council, which is as left-wing and as communist as he is, has taken what I remember as the campaign finance bill, in which you would get, they would match the amount of money that you raised from what they considered small donors. So they would match anything under $250 or less. And I don't remember if they'd match it or they'd double it. Now they multiply it by 8. So most of the money he's spending comes from the city of New York. The city of New York is underwriting that fraudulent advertising. And what language? I mean, that's very offensive to be running in another language. What do they want to turn our country over to them, whatever language that is? Does he carry somebody else's flag too? I mean, why don't I come to the why wouldn't people say he wants to destroy America? How is America going to be a singular country if it doesn't have a singular language? I mean, it's that multi lingual country for America is a way of really destroying us as a nation. There aren't that many things that hang us together. We don't have a common background. We're not like Spain or Germany or Italy or China. We come from all over. But what brings us together, what makes it work is what Abraham Lincoln would describe. And that is agreement on a common set of principles. He and I don't agree on anything. I would imagine you don't agree with him on anything. But one of the things we should agree on is the language we speak, because that has a tendency to unite us, bring us together. Great if you can speak other languages as well. But the language of America should be its language, English version, or the American version of English, which really is a little different language than the English version of English. Why would American people vote for somebody who's running for mayor in another language? Am I missing something? Or yeah, I'm missing a lot, I think. Wow.
And
And to think that I won that office when I ran for re-election in a landslide. What a shame. What a shame. What a shame.
So, Mayor, you hear a lot about you're going to have an independent candidate. You're going to have a Republican Party candidate. What, generally speaking, are there certain strategies that those two individuals, from a general standpoint, not asking you to get specific with the names, that you can do in order to make up the difference?
Historical analysis is always valuable, and then sometimes it's not very valuable. I don't know how valuable it is right now. The city is so different than when I ran. I don't know that it's going to be terribly useful to apply the same set of principles. First of all, the Democratic Party was not nearly as radical as it is now. I mean, there's no way first time I ran was 89 and 93 and then 97. There's no way, even in 97, that a candidate like that would have gotten 1% of the vote.
Right.
The fringe nut people.
Right.
But I mean, he's a more obvious clown than even de Blasio. But de Blasio was pretty much like that. I mean, he was just like useless. The people he worked for all would say off the record he was a lazy bum, which is why he and Cuomo never got along. He worked for Cuomo. Cuomo fired him. De Blasio, the good thing about de Blasio was he wasn't able to effectuate all of his policies because he was so lazy and he was so dumb. And I think he spent most of his time helping his wife, I told you about the cops, right? The cops with the hair, they wouldn't be on his detail unless the police commissioner, Bratton, exempted them from the usual tests that police officers take on a surprise basis for drugs. The test for marijuana is hair. If you got a mayor that allegedly is smoking like a chimney, I remember I got a call once from probably the Post, and they said, Mayor, is there like a big widow's peak at the top of Gracie Mansion? You know what a widow's peak is? A widow's peak is like, they have a lot of them here. In fact, you and I could drive around probably within 4 or 5 blocks here and find a couple because we're near the ocean. The widow's peak, really originally, you'll find in coastal towns. And they're called widow's peaks because the wife of the captain would have the houses or the crew, and they would stand up there and they could look out on the ocean to see when hubby was coming back. Of course, they're designed for all kinds of different houses. Now, why would Gracie Mansion have a widow's peak? Because Gracie Mansion is right on the East River, which was when Gracie Mansion was built in 1800. a very navigable river. It runs parallel to the Hudson River for a much shorter period of time. And you can basically get in the East River, sail through the Harlem River, and then your next stop is Canada. So they said to me, he's having something built up there so he can sit up there. Did you ever sit up there? I said, yeah, I used to sit up there very occasionally. I was an amateur photographer back in those days. I used to take pictures from up there too. Because you get some beautiful pictures of the sunset and birds. And then I started laughing. I said, you know why he's up there. The same reason he made the fences higher. He made the fences higher so people couldn't see over the fence what the heck he was doing on the porch. Make the fences higher, the smoke kind of dissipates a little when it gets a little higher up. So we've had some real clowns as mayor, and the guy did what I thought was impossible to do. After my administration and Bloomberg's, I really didn't think he could F up the city ever again. I thought that the people had been educated enough because between what I did and what Bloomberg did, not only did we make changes, but they were there for so long, 20 years, you thought they would stay. And number two, I deliberately built measurements, like the CompStat system being reported to the press every week. I did that as a check on the crooked Democrats that would take over after me. I didn't realize that Mike would. And I figured I got to do something to stop the city from going back to what it had been for most of its existence under the Democrats, a crooked city. Well, as soon as de Blasio came in, it became crooked again. That's its major problem. The major problem is that New York City has a budget that is driven by graft and kickbacks. Governor DeSantis was on yesterday decrying what will happen in New York City. And it's interesting. I'm not sure. The Governor DeSantis isn't from New York, great governor. But he probably would find it hard to believe that the difference between the two budgets is all the money that's stolen in New York. So he finds it hard to believe that the budget of New York, which has a population of about 18 or 19 million, is almost 2.5 times greater than the budget of Florida, which has 23 million people. Because it's hard to figure out what we're spending that extra money on. We're spending the extra money on all the kickbacks that go into the overpriced contracts that we give out, some of which ends up in the hands of the crooked New York City politicians. A lot of it then, if it isn't direct corruption, ends up in campaign contributions to them. But very often it involves they're getting the money. When you look at these congressmen, it isn't just in New York, it's in a lot of other of the poor cities. You wonder how did they start off with no money and end up dying with 10 million, 20 million, 30 million? Well, you know how they did it. Press doesn't cover that either.
Here's city spending per capita, Mayor.
Pardon me?
Here's city spending per capita. Here's a little chart that shows just how much New York spends compared to other cities in the country.
It's totally out of control.
Look at that. I mean, Chicago, and look at that. Look at New York compared to every other city.
I mean, some of those cities are pretty darn corrupt also. But look where we are. We're off the charts.
Chicago, Philadelphia. Look at that. You're over double number two.
Well, it looks like we double. Looks like we double, more than double Chicago.
Right.
And there's good old crooked Philadelphia. Now let's see. Let's go through those cities. New York, Democrat. Chicago, 65 years a Democrat. What's the next one?
Austin.
Austin is Democrat.
Next.
It's one of the big. It's the biggest, really. That and San Antonio is Democrat also in Texas. Philadelphia is very Democrat. San Diego goes back and forth. I think it's Democratic mayor now, but it has had a Republican mayor. One of the few. But and the next one I can't see it.
Phoenix.
What?
Phoenix.
That's Democrat. Go ahead.
And you wonder if that's related to the desert and water.
What's the rest?
Dallas,
Democrat.
Los Angeles,
Democrat.
Houston,
All Democrat.
and San Antonio.
Democrat. The only city there that has recently had a Republican mayor would be San Diego and New York. And Bloomberg was a Republican for 2/3 of his term. And then he became an independent. Now he's a Democrat. I don't know if he ever was a Democrat while he was in office. He was an independent in office. He quit the Republican Party. I used to say that I was before Mike, because Mike wasn't elected in the 20th century. He was elected in 2001. So I used to say that in 100 years, there were only 3 Republican mayors, and only 2 remain Republican, and I was one of those. They were LaGuardia, Lindsay, and me. Lindsay did a Bloomberg and switched to the Democrat Party, but in his case, he did it because he lost a Republican primary. The Republican Party threw him out because he governed as such a left winger. In fact, when he ran for re-election in a 3-way race, the Democrat was the more conservative candidate. That's very odd, right? He won on the liberal line. He was defeated by Senator John Markey from Staten Island in the Republican primary for re-election. John Lindsay was an extraordinarily nice man who I liked a lot and I helped a lot, along with Peter Vallone, because he had fallen on hard times. And I even met with him and got advice, because I wasn't going to do the things he did wrong, but at least he understood the mayoralty. But I thought then, as a kid, he's one of the reasons I quit the Democrat Party when he became a Democrat. I mean, he was a terrible mayor. You could probably trace a lot of the systemic problems we have, including the substantial budget problems and the dependency problems, to him. He's a terrible mayor. Probably until de Blasio. De Blasio was the worst mayor of my lifetime that I lived under. Lindsay was certainly better than de Blasio. But after that, Lindsay. So, I mean, this guy can put it in an altogether different category, though. He can the ideas that he has, as you see, are extraordinary. So the race comes down to he has definitely won. They still have to do the rank choice. They still have to do the rank choice numbers, but he has such a lead that there's no possible way mathematically that there's no possible way that anybody could overtake him. And even if somebody, yeah, I mean, Cuomo's too far behind, and you wonder, why did Cuomo not win? Now let's get beyond the crazy ideas and the stupidity and the whatever. He ran a much more energetic campaign than Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo ran a lackluster campaign, which is unusual. I criticize Andrew a good deal, but he always has been an excellent campaigner. I mean, he's a very skilled politician. Been in politics from the day he was in the crib. I don't know, but I don't know what it was. Did he run out of gas? Did he? Reminds me a little bit of my friend. I wonder if he's still my friend. He's probably angry at me because of Trump. But Jeb Bush. I mean, Jeb, got attacked by Trump as being a
Low energy.
Yeah, being lazy. Just the opposite. Jeb Bush was one of the hardest working guys I knew, and he was a great campaigner. When he ran for governor, I campaigned with him a lot, and he campaigned for me for mayor. When Trump first called him that, I said, that's not going to work. Then I watched the debate, and it did work. It worked because it fit. I don't know what happened. I don't know what. Same thing with Andrew. At the beginning of the race, everybody thought he was going to win, not just because of name recognition, but because he's a good candidate. I'm not saying he was a good governor. I'm saying he was a good candidate. Well, I mean, like the way you would say that Obama was a good candidate. But a terrible president. So we'll have to. Well, of course, there's a lot to go in this race, and we'll have to follow it. But the people remaining in it are Adams is going to remain in it, and the Republican candidate is Curtis Sliwa, the founder of and the guy who started the Guardian Angels. And then there are a couple of other third-party candidates on, but those are really. And Cuomo has said he's not going to run on a third party. In New York, you can set up your own party and run if you can get enough signatures. And all of these people are well known enough to be capable of getting enough support to be on the ballot. But Cuomo, I think, wants to do the loyal thing for the Democrat Party, which is what ruined him in the first place. When he first became governor of New York, he wasn't so bad. But then he decided that someday he wanted to run for president, so he had to go wildly and crazily to the left. And then he gave us all these pro-criminal bills that are killing us now. Even those didn't come from Hochul. They came from Cuomo. The bail bill that lets all the criminals out. The parole bill that has us now with 42 released cop killers because of Cuomo. But at least he was not in favor of defunding the police. This guy wants to defund the police. How can you defund the police in New York? Why would you think that unless you have an ulterior motive as a communist?
Right.
Well, there's a very, very good article. There's a good editorial in the Post about the People's Republic of New York City. Extremely apt. I've said for some time that our economy is a communist economy. The government controls more of it than the private sector does. It's a top-down command economy, totally inconsistent with the principles of free market that made America great. Well, I must say, I was a little disappointed that Israel didn't have even more of a chance to pound the Iranian regime, into oblivion. Because, and hear me out on this, the president accomplished a great thing and I think we can concede that maybe it'll turn out to be less than, will never be permanent. No matter what he did in taking out the nuclear facilities, if they can spend the money, they can become nuclear again. I can't tell you the baseline period of time, certainly within a decade, maybe less than that. And particularly if they continue to get help from Russia and China and North Korea. Now, that's the real question, isn't it? Because what was done that's even more important than wrong. It wasn't more important than taking out the nuclear facilities, because they were ready to go with those, particularly if they had the help of China and Russia and North Korea, all of which are nuclear powers. In fact, I'm surprised it took them this long. They couldn't have gotten the kind of cooperation and help they claim from those three countries and taken this long to get themselves to the point where they have viable nuclear weapons. But in any event, you're not going to see Russia helping them. Russia actually wants to maintain good relations with Israel because they realize how strong a powerhouse it is as an economy. And they want to trade with them. So they're going to play both sides against the middle. China is brilliant at not supporting. China wasn't anybody to pull them down. China's going to support you as long as it can figure out a way to steal from you, which is what they do. It's amazing, but they have now put in new laws, much stricter laws, in the rare earth industry, because they're worried with what Trump imposed on them that people are going to come and steal their secrets, which is a little silly because all the secrets they have, they stole from somewhere else. Most of it from the United States of America, but some of it from Europe and India and places like that. I mean, what you have to understand about China is this doesn't reflect on their intelligence or even their education, but it reflects on how they were educated and how they were brought up. They're brought up in a very rigid one-party dictatorship, kind of like New York and Chicago. And their dictatorship virtually makes independent thinking illegal. So if you haven't been trained in independent thinking from the day you were born, if you don't live in an atmosphere of independent thinking, you're not going to be terribly creative. You can be very imitative, but you're not going to be terribly creative. And that's been China's biggest problem, which they make up for by stealing. And they steal largely from us, although also from India, which doesn't have India. I don't know if India has more poverty or less poverty than China. Certainly not quite as wealthy as China. But India is a much more creative culture and a much more creative society. India is not an imitative society by nature. China is. So what they're doing is they're putting tremendous restrictions on the people that are involved in their rare earth area of their economy, because that rare earth area of their economy is their leverage that they used and can use on the tariffs. So they have just passed a whole series of laws putting those scientists under even greater house arrest, I guess, so that you can't infiltrate, you can't get spies in there. It's very interesting to see it. I thought it was terrific of the president to come to Bibi's defense on these ridiculous trials that they're putting him through. I know his case really well. I went over it with him, actually, for the purpose of possibly representing him. And then I wasn't able to because I thought, and I think the president agreed with this, there would be a conflict if I represented both of them. And it's a completely contrived case, and contrived largely by the judiciary and his opponents. The judiciary there runs a lot of the government. And this case has been going on for like, I don't know how they try it. Like, I think they have a court hearing once a month. They wanted to go on for the rest of his life, I think. And it's really things that he supposedly got that he shouldn't have gotten. A large amount of it being cigars, which really gets me angry because I used to like going there and I would get a cigar or two. Now I'm afraid to take a cigar. I don't know, they might put me in jail. So China is cracking down on any kind of espionage. That's really funny, since China spies all around the world, steals intellectual property all around the world. Now they want to protect their stolen intellectual property. They're passing all these laws to rigidly confine the rare earth scientists. I don't know, maybe we should pay the Mossad a little money and get them an MEK there. See what we can do to them. So the great and tight axis that existed of Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia, somehow, I guess if the Ayatollah calls Xi Jinping and says, "Gee, you're our ally. How come you didn't help us?" Xi Jinping will say, "Gee, Ayatollah, what happened? We were attacked. Oh, gee, I didn't know that. Next time, let me know." I don't know how Putin would handle it. He's as big a liar as Xi Jinping. But this is why it's so good to have them as allies. They'll be there when it helps them, and they'll not be there if it doesn't. And I think they've written Iran off as a troublemaker. I think China has, for sure. I don't know about Putin. Putin is a little more freewheeling than China. The UK, this is part of, Trump's program to increase the American economy and also to straighten out the balance of payments. But the UK has just concluded a deal to buy 12 F-35A jets. Now, that's very good. It's very good for our economy, but it's also very good for the fact that England wants to step up their military contribution. 35 bombers like that would be very, very useful. And then I guess what goes along with that also is a contract to train them. And these are things you make a lot of money on. We've used some of them in Ukraine, and it took a long time to train the Ukrainian Navy, Air Force to use it. So that is a very good thing, and it's part of I think, the new trade deal with Israel that Bibi was the prime minister was very, very anxious to come here with. But for some reason, the president says that he doesn't have plans to visit with King Charles. I don't know why. We'll try to find out. I think Prince Charles has unburdened himself of his opinion of Donald Trump. And I don't think it was favorable. People should know. I don't know if King Charles would like to know my opinion of him. See, I'm an honorary knight. I don't know. I might get kicked out. They've kicked me out of most everything else. Some of those left-wing schools took away honorary degrees that I got from when I gave commencement addresses there. And I was told then at the time, "Oh, it's the best commencement address ever given," all that bull. And then they took my honorary degree away because I represented Donald Trump. That's what I did. That's what I'm I'm indicted for representing Donald Trump. Everything I'm indicted for has to do with my representation of him. That sound like America? So I just find it very strange that China is putting extra restraints on their rare earth scientists. I wonder if it has to do with how Israel penetrated the
Iran?
how Israel was able to.
Potentially, isn't it true that we're going to ramp up domestic production, or at least we're attempting
Well,
to?
I also think they worry about people leaving and flipping over. They have a lot of people that try to get out of China. I mean, it's not a pleasant place to be.
So they really are. They're tracking down their rare earth experts and taking away their passports.
Mm-hmm.
Beijing is actually asking companies in China for lists of specialists in order to keep tabs on them. This, according to a Wall Street Journal exclusive.
Well, I mean, it is their one area of power, and it is going to be hard in the short term to overcome them, but not going to be hard long term. But it's going to be hard to do it in short term. And short term means a year, 2 years.
Hard to catch up, right? It takes
Right.
It's a very time-intensive process, expensive.
Well, the Immigration Service has arrested a group of illegals, and a number of them came from Iran.
Yes.
So the idea that we didn't get terrorists in here from Iran is disproven by the number that we've arrested, and it certainly doesn't reflect it anyway. The number of people that we have to account for, but we've got to now, as a result of what Biden and some fellow Democrats did, we're overloaded with people who don't have skills, who don't have an obvious thing they can do, or they also tend to, as a result of that, not particularly want to work, which is not good for a society. Well, there's a guy, and you probably don't know who he is. He's known as the first stepmother's business husband. Is that what you call him?
Yeah, that's somebody on X. I did put that up there. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Work, I think it was meant to be fun. It meant to be. Yeah, it's a term. I think they're.
He's a work husband. He's also supposed to be one completely nasty individual, and that's what Democrats say. And nobody likes dealing with him, except her. It would seem right that a step grandmother who would not put out a Christmas stocking for little Navy Biden would, in fact, have a really nasty husband, work husband. I mean, the other guy used to be nasty. He's too demented now to be nasty. But Anthony Bernal is I don't know if he's actually been held in contempt or he will be. He's refusing to testify. At this point, Bannon was already in jail.
Mm-hmm.
But we're the Republicans the only ones who go to jail. There's something morally wrong with
That's funny.
doing this to the great party of the poor.
So he's missing it. He is refusing to comply.
Well, the Comer's committee wanted him to testify about all of the things in the White House. I mean, he probably has knowledge of Biden's capacity, and
we'll see about that. This is yeah. I'm going to bring a picture in just a moment.
nobody likes him. Nobody. Nobody. Like,
This is him right here.
Trump is, oh, there's the first stepmother.
And there's Joe in the
I think
corner.
she set a record for the most time on Vogue for I think so. But I don't think they put her on Vogue right now. I think that was a little Bernal with her.
Right.
The guy with her who has the Washington staffer problem.
Yeah.
Of being, much nastier than the principal and thinking they are the principal.
Right.
I don't know if he's as bad as they say or the people that don't like him exaggerate it.
Right.
But he certainly has within the Democrat. I don't think Republicans deal with him that much.
Yeah.
But on the Democrat side, there's no great love for him. But it sounds like he fits her purpose because she seemed like a very cold, very, very cold person.
Right.
A lot of people would joke around that if he really gets bad, she's just not going to give him his medicines. Wonder who those drugs were for in the White House.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a big question, right? It's not like there's one individual that stands out as a culprit.
Well, there is one individual that spent so much time in rehabilitation centers before he got to the White House that it really wouldn't be fair to mention him until he's here and
Right.
he can defend himself. But the reality is that they're going to have to testify.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe these judges have a different rule for Democrats. But isn't this what Bannon and Navarro went to jail for?
Yep.
Well,
So-
we'll see.
We'll see what happens there.
We'll see.
So, Mayor, going back to your previous story, yes, 130 Iranian nationals have been arrested in the United States in the last week alone. Here's some pictures.
Well, there they are right there. The real issue is what kind of handle do we have on how many there are and where they are? Since many of them we didn't trace from the very beginning. We don't have anything to go back to.
Right.
They're unknown to us because they just walked in and nobody did or said anything.
Right.
Because the border is very large. It's easy to get across if you got the help of the cartels.
Right.
Well, shall we take a break?
Yes. Let's take a quick break.
And we'll be right back, or as quickly as possible. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax, channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani again, and let me take you back to where we started earlier on the Rudy Giuliani show, and that is the appraisal of the whole issue about how much damage was done to the facilities that we hit over the weekend in order to prevent or delay the enrichment of uranium by the Islamic Republic of Iran. The report that was leaked, it was a classified report, and it was leaked by some criminal in the national intelligence apparatus who had access to it. Is almost on the face a dishonest document. To put out a report this quickly on something that you wouldn't really know about, and then to cover it by saying that you don't have a high degree of confidence in it, what'd you put it out for? And is it a little suspicious that it directly contradicts what Trump said? I don't have low confidence about what Trump said. I heard him say it. Right? But you're giving me a report where the best the intelligence agency community can say is we have very low confidence in the truth of this. So this is like some kind of fictional world that we live in. And then we can go and look at all the reports that have been done. And the reports that have been done affirm that a great deal of damage was done and that it's been set back, they don't know how long, but substantially. It is important that we get this right. And it's a real crime that it was leaked to this reporter who in the past has written deliberately false stories about Trump. You would think they would leak it to somebody who had a unsullied reputation, but they didn't. And she made all sorts of comments that were inaccurate. The ambassador from Ukraine to the U.S. So I hope the American people can see through this, because it was a terrible defamation of not just the president, but of the American military. That they went through this tremendous work and they got rid of only 40% of the available people that you can get rid of. I don't know exactly what happened, but I can look at the pictures and I can see that great damage was done. They're gonna have to rebuild all this. So I'll pray for it all working out right, but I'll pray, in my way, and you pray in your way, and we'll all say a little prayer to God. Why don't we just take a break and we'll say a little prayer to God, and then we'll complete the very tail end of the show. Okay. So here's where we stand. Here's where we stand on this. The report, on the face of it, is telling you not to rely on it. It says we don't have a high degree of confidence in the accuracy of this information. So it's beginning by warning you, don't buy into it yet until you have more information about this. So to the extent that you heard it and you believe it, I mean, they're just not going to allow a free and fair election. So there's nothing you can do about it. That's the horrible dictatorship you live in, which if you give us a little time, we'll be able to turn around. I think that Iraq is being very, very I think there has to be some way that somebody can clarify this. There really isn't. I mean, we're a country of free speech, but it really is premised on your ability to think through things. So maybe they want to put somebody on to debate me. I don't know. I'd be happy to do that.
So the Institute of Science and Security has reported that the American strike on the Fordow enrichment plant was astoundingly accurate, and damage to the nuclear program has been set back years. That, of course, contradicts the low certainty. What was the language?
Low confidence.
Low confidence report, which is just the initial report that isn't meant for public consumption.
Yep. I don't know. I mean, it's. Shall we show them a little video of the damage that was done by yes. That'd be the first like V Bureau.
Video here before and after. So watch this closely.
It is. Oh, it is. Did you say before and after? So right at that site, what are we looking at now? We're looking at Fordow? Yes. Well, that got hit by 12 of the biggest bombs in the world, short of a nuclear weapon. And the whole purpose of that bombing was to stretch out the period of time they have to enrich uranium. So it is an immediate concern, and we can think about other things we have to think about. But let's hope it gets clarified as quickly as possible. Although I think a great deal of good work was done today. A lot of organizations that wouldn't normally come out in favor of a Republican came out in favor of Bush, of Bush. I mean, the intelligence agencies are filled, particularly the CIA, but they're filled with left-wing graduates of usually the Ivy League law schools. In fact, that's where they I think it was at Yale that they actually first recruited what was the predecessor of the CIA. And they are, smarter than the world. And it's been a long time since they got anything right. You tell me when. Go ahead. Think about the faulty intelligence that Americans have been operating on. I don't know. I don't know exactly how much weight you'd give to one where there was a great deal of confidence. One that there's no confidence. First of all, it just shouldn't hit the public. Person who put it out did not have the best interest of America in mind, because it conveys nothing except confusion and contradiction of Trump.
Right. It's very obvious what's going on there in that part of it.
You know, it's very, very obvious. Wow. You're darn right it is. So
we'll be watching that play out to see if they are able to identify the leakers. The president mayor has indicated that he's going to limit information he shares with Capitol Hill following this major.
well, I wonder.
leak.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. This is a Capitol Hill leak. 'Cause I'm not sure they were. I mean, you never know who's briefed and who isn't. But the average rank and file member was not briefed by the government.
Mhm.
So we don't. I mean, we don't know. And this is not an official report. See, I don't know what the hell it is. It's not an official report. There's no confidence in it, but it contradicts Trump, and that's why they have it.
Yeah. That's the important part. That was
And it contradicts common sense. You showed those pictures.
right. Let's see how do you think this facility getting hit like this? How do you think that facility's doing today? That's live video again. Unfortunately, we don't have our own. I mean, at least not publicly available. Do we have video capabilities from satellites? Do we have video of that? Do you think the government?
I didn't have video.
But I'm saying, does our government have the? Do you think they had video of it, right, happening up close with drones and such?
Yes, we can also. There are a lot of other ways to surveil it as well. We have equipment that measures under the earth, as well as things that measure atmosphere and the things that are above the earth.
This is for Dow right here. It's more like a nuke. This one. Wow.
Oh, it's a terrible, terrible fire. Oh my goodness.
Huge. Look at that. Wow.
So I think the president probably has straightened this out for most Americans. I think they can now see through what happened.
Right. Right.
So we'll have to see what happens tomorrow, because more will come out tomorrow. And we also have to see how long this ceasefire continues to exist,
Right.
without interruption under both governments, which have a real desire of eliminating each other, because in the case of Iran, that's what they wanted to do from the beginning.
Yeah.
Islamic Republic of Iran wants to spread out, take over the entire Middle East, and throw the Jewish people in the sea, which several of their terrorist groups have done.
Right.
And then we got to think about what's number two. We got a lot of traveling to do.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, I think that over the weekend we'll get more definitive reports and analysis with more data, so that we can be comfortable with numbers. But I don't think there's any escaping the fact that this had a very big impact within Iran. And the impact that it's going to have on the rest of the world is a little bit more, it's a little harder to figure out. At how much of this will they buy? They did see the destruction.
Right.
They did see Iran change its position right away and want to have peace. But of course, the reason these are put out is they have some impact on opinion when it's the first thing that's put out. It sort of dominates the airwaves. And number two, they don't. The press doesn't do a good job of fact checking them. They fact check us, but they don't fact check them. And you would have immediately, if you fact checked them, known that there was an estimate that it wasn't true. Well, we'll have to see how that all plays out in the next couple of days, and what we're going to do. I mean, we are very committed against no boots on the ground. But if we wanted to do something in Lebanon, that you cannot do it just all from the air. It's got to be done physically, with physical contact. So, anything else you'd like to cover, Ted?
Well, Mayor, of course, the Democrat Party continues to search for their, the field for 2028, I guess, is starting to, we're still at the front end, the beginning of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're seeing some different names being bandied about. And China Tim, I think, is the name we're using now, right? Or are you sticking with Tampon?
Yes.
I think China Tim, if you want, look, you want to beat this guy, I just ask him every day, hey, what were you doing in China so much, right?
Yeah.
So someone like him, and of course, we've talked last time about all the governors. How about we play a quick, I'm going to say a name and I want to get your quick reaction. So let's start with China Tim. Let's start with Tim Walz.
Tampon Tim.
Mark Kelly. Senator Mark Kelly, Arizona. Nothing. Gavin Newsom.
Newscum.
Jared Polis. That's Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, our friend. Feliz Navidad.
Oh, that's Feliz Navidad.
Yeah. Jared Polis.
Feliz Navidad.
Yeah, Jared. The JB Pritzker.
Fat pig.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan.
Witless.
Yeah. Andy Beshear, Kentucky.
Useless.
Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania.
Watch him carefully. Slippery guy. Very slippery.
Kathy Hochul.
Wow. She's somehow getting by without an IQ.
Right. Bernie Sanders.
Much overrated. Useless senator.
Yeah.
Silly senator.
AOC.
Not a bad bartender.
Elizabeth Warren. Pocahontas herself. And then someone like Stephen A. Smith. I'm not even sure you know the name. Yeah, you know Stephen A. Smith. You're a sports guy. People are talking about him potentially wading into the field of politics.
He can run for president?
Yeah. Yes, that is what is being. He himself is kind of encouraging the talk. Sports guy.
I don't know. I guess if you can elect.
Hey, I'd take Stephen A. Smith over Mom Donnie.
If you can elect Zohan Zopan there.
Yeah. Right? I'd rather have Stephen A. Smith, even though he's a Knicks fan.
Zohan Dopey.
So that'll be interesting. The president, quite a successful week coming back. That NATO meeting, wow.
Oh,
what he was able to accomplish.
I just thought Trump is doing so well at these meetings.
Right. And you could tell he looks confident. He knows. He's like, all right. He had the NATO chief calling him daddy. He literally had
funny.
That was funny. And that is clearly a term of endearment. That can't be really, I don't see how you can interpret that any other way. Of course, the media and then the Democrat and the
I don't know.
foreign policy establishment, they try to find a way.
Very lightly too. You can see how much Vance was laughing, and Rubio was laughing.
Marco.
Yeah, Marco was laughing his head off.
Right.
He might have been there when it happened.
Right.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow. We urge you to listen between now and tomorrow to the podcast that we did, in which we used Ali Reza, who is a very high official in the government in exile that is ready to take over from the Ayatollahs and the mullahs should they step down or be removed. And that would be the end of them. If you'd made that, did it like really quick and got the mullahs out of it and returned them to being a secular government they were in the past, boy, I'd sleep a lot easier. And I think everybody else would. So I just think putting off this regime change thing, whenever you have a good reason to do it, you should do it. And so is there anything else?
Oh, well, we just real quickly, we'll bring up our chat and ask folks to comment below where they're tuning in from. We had a lot of folks yesterday let us know where they're tuning in from. So comment below the city and state, and we'll list them off before we sign off here on some of the places people are watching from. We had some people from around the world.
You got anybody in Russia?
Last night, and we've had people in Russia before. So comment below, city and state. Texas tuning in. Mayor, you spent a lot of time in Texas, correct?
Well, you would expect Texas, but you got any in Russia?
Sydney, Australia.
Australia.
Sydney, Australia. Texas. Keep them coming. Sometimes they come up in bursts. Last night, of course, we had a lot of different places, a number of different states. A lot of people from California. Of course,
you have our sympathies.
Right. So we'll keep an eye on the chat, and tomorrow night we'll comment on where folks are.
Good. Well, you have
tuning in from
Maryland. You have an excellent evening. Make sure you pray
West Virginia
for the people in harm's way, including the United States. Pray for the president to make the right decisions, and pray to God to bring us peace. And thank God for having given us a president that can handle these situations. Seems to come through at exactly the right time. So you keep focusing on how we're going to make each one of us play our role in making America great. I really do again urge you to get the interview with Ali Reza. Takes you through all the things you need to know about Iran, which you're going to need to know for the next couple of years, because this isn't over, and it's going to continue. And hopefully, we're going to get the regime of terror out, and we'll put a regime in that serves the people, and also is committed to free elections and committed to a rule of law and all the things that China and Russia and North Korea and obviously Iran are missing. And that's why they were allies. Hopefully that's broken up somewhat. So again, thank you, and God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.